Okay, let's start. So, a quick question, as is usual, is my practice to give you a question in the break, and then we shall commence. Okay. So, remember we talked about lateral thinking scenarios. So, just for the ensuring that everybody knows about it, I'll be asking you a scenario question or a lateral thinking question, as it's called, and the question will seem preposterous. It will seem stupid. It will seem insane or imaginative as well. No matter what the question is, you need to come up with an answer, and that which answer you need to come up with is the answer that I have in my mind. Well, how is it possible that you can come up with an answer to a question that is there in my mind? Very simple. The methodology you follow is you do not assume, but you instead ask questions, yes or no questions. So it's like a 20, I'm sure you would have played 20 question game, where you keep a personality in mind and you keep asking, is he alive, is he dead, is it a he or a she, and based on that you come up with the personality. Same way you ask me yes or no questions. Best it is played with an example. So let me ask you a question. Some of you might know. If you know it, please bear with me and do not answer. Give others a chance. If you don't know it, jump into the fray and ask me questions. I want everybody to participate. The scenario is this: a man reaches a ground, and the moment he reaches the ground, he dies. I'll repeat. A man reaches a ground, and the moment he reaches the ground, he dies. That's all. Explain what happened. Now, on the based of this, if you think, is there a man reaches a ground and he dies, is the statement what is saying? Is there only one way of this man dying, or are there many ways? Many ways are there. But you need to come up with only one answer which is there in my mind. It might be a stupid answer, it might be a good answer, it doesn't matter. Whatever is my answer is what you need to arrive at. That's why, what is it you should never ever do in such questions are guess. Don't guess. If you guess, you might make a mistake. And don't assume, but instead ask me questions. So let's start. Those of you who have not played this game, who are new to this, who don't know this question, I want you to participate. Simply throw me questions. Yes. 1 second, Janaka. Huh? Did he jump into the what? Terrace. Did he jump from a terrace? The answer is no. Very good question. I'll answer that. Jayanagar, you had a question for me?
Diameter of that ground.
Diameter of that ground. First time I'm getting this question. Very interesting question. See, these are the way you need to think. You don't want to assume anything, right? What do you mean ground? Is it chotu ground, big ground, fat ground? Who knows what ground it is, right? Good question. So let's say it's, I don't know, it's a big ground. It's a big ground, 500 meters diameter. Huge ground. Kabban Park or Lal Bagh Man. Okay? Yes, like that. Very good. Ask me more questions. I'll come to your question, yeah? Very good question. Easier? Pilot. He is not a pilot. He is not a pilot. So I want 1 or 2 more questions. I'm going to answer both of your questions shortly, but I just want 1 or 2 more questions. Was he alone? Was he alone? Or did he come with somebody? He was alone. He was alone. Ask me 1 or 2 more questions. Then I'll answer and I'll lead you in the right direction. Yes? Was he? Old. Remember, no assumption. For all you know, he is a iglo-oglo man. A man who is a 120-year-old man who was about to die anyways. He walked, reached the ground, the book he fell down dead. Is that possible or not? Definitely possible. So, question, was he an old man? No. Not an old man. Good. 1 or 2 more.
Is he having any heart problem like that?
Is he having any heart problem? No. He has no heart problem. So now I'm going to coach you a little bit, okay? Heart problem, die from falling from a terrace, right? And couple of questions that were asked. So these are all perfect questions, by the way. But these are very specific questions. Like for example, I'll take heart problem question. If you ask me, did he die because of heart problem? Of course he could have died because of heart problem. But if I say no, what do you know? You ask me, did he die because of heart problem? I'll say no. What do you know now? He didn't die of heart problem. Could he have died because of liver problem? Intestine problem? Brain problem. Yes or no? Are you going to keep asking all these questions? The brain, kidney, appendicitis. Clearly that doesn't make any sense. Instead, make the question more generic. Alright? Again, as you said, did he die because of what problem or whatever like that. So, what would you make it generic as? Did he have any health issues? Very good. Generic question. Ask me generic questions because that will help you to go towards the direction of the answer. Fall from terrace. Correct question. Nothing wrong. But if I say no, you only know that he didn't fall from terrace. He might have fallen from something else. Yes or no? So make it more generic. So did he have a health issue? No. No health issue. Not an old man. Robust young man. One or two more questions. Janaga. Everybody participate. Just throw a question. How difficult is it to ask a question?
What is the environment of the ground?
What is the environment of the ground? Lalbagh. Same environment. So normal trees are there. Nothing. This is important. For all you know, what ground are we talking about only we don't know. Is it not? Very good. Normal environment. Good. This is how I want you to ask. Anything else? Did he have enemies? Did he have enemies? For all you know, some enemies waiting as soon as he's going to shoot and dead. So, instead of asking enemies, by the way, the answer is no, he didn't have enemies. Instead of asking enemies, make it more generic. Same question. Let me allow me to coach you. Huh? No, with respect to enemies, make it more generic. If I say no, you know that he did not die because of enemies, right? Was he killed by any person? Again, let's make it even more generic. Was there anybody else involved in his death? That anybody else could be enemy, anybody else could be anybody else could be his friend only. Correct? No. First to find out, was there any influence of somebody else? Then you can narrow it down by asking enemy, husband, wife, all that. Perfect. So there was nobody else. He was alone. Nobody influenced his death.
That is natural.
Good question. Was it a natural death? Good question. Was it a natural death? The answer is no. He didn't die because of natural death. He didn't die because of a health disease, and he was not murdered. There was nobody else who influenced his death. So what kind of a death is it then? Environmental death. Suicide. Was it a suicide? No. Was it environmental? No. What is the other type of death that is there? Accidental death. Yes, it was. Accidental death. Now ask me more questions. So now you know a little bit now. Huh? Can he see? Was he health-wise proper? For all you know, he's a blind fellow. He went and dishum. He fell down on a ditch with a chupukal and dead. Yeah, he can see. His health was perfectly fine. Janaka, you had a question? Quickly. Huh? What? Bhukamp. Oh, Bhukamp. Bhukamp. You are using English words like me. I mean, Kannada words in English. Very nice. Bhukamp. Oh yeah. Yeah, I know. Yeah, for all you know, there is an earthquake or a volcano or something like that. Definitely possible, right? Accidental, as we said. So, did any of those things happen? Natural disaster. Did it happen? Don't say Bhukamp. Natural disaster. Make it generic, right? Did any natural disaster happen? No. No natural disaster. Height? There is no terrace. There is no terrace. He just came to the ground. Now your question makes sense. So now we have understood so many things, right? So now how you should think, I'll tell you. A man reaches a ground and he dies. This is the statement, right? First understand what are you assuming. We are all making a story. One is about the age of the man, the health of the man. We are making an assumption. Test that. You already did. Was he a healthy guy? Did he have any health problems? How old was he? You already asked. Same way, you should also query about the ground. Ground. What kind of a ground? You already asked. Normal ground. For all you know, it is an electric ground. Full electricity is there. It's an electric field based ground. He goes there, brrr, dead. It's possible, right? Possible. So don't assume. You can't say, hey, Angala Saila, sir. See, anything can happen, isn't it? So you have to make out, and you already did. It's a Lalbagh like ground. It's an open ground. It's just like a lawn or whatever you have on it. Good. The third thing you assume is about a man reaches the ground, right? As rightly asked. How does he reach? What are you thinking in your mind? How is a man reaching the ground? A man reaches the ground. How is he reaching the ground, Ray? Walk, jog, run, bike, cycle, car, van, train, ship. Which one? Are there many scenarios or not? In your mind you have put full story only. Sir, ಅವನಿಗೆ ನಡ್ಕೊಂಡು ಹೋಗ್ತಾ ಇದ್ದ ಜೀನ್ಸ್ ಹಾಕೊಂಡಿದ್ದಲ್ಲ ಗೊತ್ತು ನೀನು ಬ್ಲೂ ಕಲರ್ ಜೀನ್ಸ್ ನನ್ನ ಟೀ ಶರ್ಟ್ ಹಾಕೊಂಡು ಹೋಗ್ತಾ ಇದ್ದ ತಲೆ ಮೇಲೆ ಕಲ್ಲು ಬಿತ್ತು accidental death. This is how we create stories, right? Our mind, I tell you, is what is called as a meaning making machine. Meaning making machine, right? I mean, just as a silly analogy, a person is standing outside his house drinking coffee. He sees a beautiful girl go morning at 7 o'clock or 8 o'clock and then drinking coffee. After exactly 1 minute, one man goes behind in the same way. He simply drinks. Next day, same time, drinking coffee. Same beautiful girl goes. After exactly 1 minute, that same man goes. Immediately in his mind, hey, something is there. You know? After 2 days, this man is there in a bus stand. He goes to a bus stand. He sees the beautiful girl. Next to the beautiful girl, this man is there. Immediately in his mind, certainty. Correct, no? ಗೊತ್ತಿತ್ತು ನೋಡ ಸೇ ನಾನು ಅನ್ಕೊಂಡಲ್ಲ ಚಕ್ಕರ್ ಏನೋ ಇರಲೇಬೇಕು. This is how our mind makes meanings, right? Whereas in reality, neither the boy nor the girl might have even seen each other, known each other. We fundamentally make meanings. That's our capability of the mind. And why am I discussing this in a Java class? The reason is because the number one thing our software should do is meet the requirements, and the number one reason why our program don't meet the requirements is because I and you, like as developers, we assume. We make meanings when there are no meanings. Look at the way we live our life. Some uncle, aunt or somebody looks at you like this. ಏನು ಹಂಗೆ ನೋಡ್ತಾ ಇದ್ದ ನೋಡು. And we interpret even looks of people. Correct, no? ಕೋಪ ಬಂದಿದೆ ನಿಮಗೆ, right? So this is how we make meanings. And because of the meanings we make, unfortunately we make up stories and we understand requirements wrongly, which means we build our system wrongly, which means our system and our program will never meet the requirements. That's why we need to learn from day one how to remove these assumptions. And that's why I told you there is a very deep connect between programming and lateral thinking, because lateral thinking is all about no assumptions. So that's why from today, whenever I ask you a question like this, first question yourself, what are you assuming? Whatever you are assuming, ask the question on that. Are you with me? Just ask the question. So, is he a man? Is he alive? Yaar gottappa. Man reaches the ground. For all you know, he was already dead. In coffin, he is reaching the ground. Correct, no? How do you know? You don't know. He is reaching in a van where he is already in coffin and the burial ground it was, and they put him inside. Man reaches the ground and he was dead. How did he die? Already dead, so he remained dead. One scenario. That's not the answer. Bottom line, question. Is he a live man? How old is he? How did he die? Natural death, accidental death. How did he reach the ground? He did not reach the ground either by walk or by running or by a ground vehicle. What is the other way of reaching the ground? Jump only, not from terrace. That's why I told you, ask generic questions. It will help you to answer very easily. Good question though. He is a para jumper. He jumps from a plane. And from the plane, when he is jumping and coming down, he has a parachute. He pulls the ring. Parachute says, I will be in bag only. Parachute doesn't open. Mother Earth say, ba maga. I have lot of love and affection towards you. You know, gravity, as we call it. And he falls dub on the ground, dead. Accidental death, young man. The moment he reaches ground only he dies. Doesn't die before. Nobody else is involved. Are you with me? Now, this is one answer. There could be 1,000 answers. For all you know, he reaches the ground and walk and there was one cobra. As soon as he comes, one kiss. Double he falls dead. Possible or not? Of course possible. Is that a better answer than this answer? There is no better answer. What is the answer is the only thing that matters. Yes or no? Like as we were talking about, What is the objective of this course is to make you reach the goal. If some of your goals is to reach a job, for example, you want to enter into a good Java development job with a nice company, good work environment and great work and a fairly decent salary. If this is your goal, the one thing we don't want to do is compromise. We have to reach it, man. No questions asked. That is the answer. We have to reach that. Now the only thing we need to do is to ask the right questions to understand what should I do to reach that goal. What should I do to reach the goal can be given to you only when you ask the right questions. So lateral thinking helps us a lot in programming, and you will see even in real life. Anyway, coming back, what have we discussed so far is to quickly reiterate and tell you, we are trying to understand what is it about Java that makes it advantageous in that it is used in embedded, mobile, desktop and enterprise web application development as well. We said Java is an object-oriented language, but there are so many object-oriented languages. There are many languages created earlier, many languages have come up later as well. But still Java is used. Maximum number of jobs are there, maximum number of openings are there, maximum number of development is happening there, maximum number of people are developing in Java. The question is why? What is it about Java that makes it advantageous? We said to understand why, we need to understand the story of how Java evolved. So we started off saying, literally looking at what was the origin of computing. We said at a very high level that whatever a human being does is what we want to automate to replace him with a machine so that he can do creative problem solving. To be able to do that, we need a machine which mimics the human body and the mind. We said that's what our hardware is, a computer is. It has a processor, mimics the brain. You have your peripherals, input peripherals, output peripherals, to which you can take the data, spit out the data. Your memory, which can hold the data temporarily, and hard disk long term, and the processor which understands instructions. So if we build a set of instructions in the way the processor understands, we can automate a task. But then we observed building instructions in the machine specific format that the processor understands is very complex. That's why we wanted a higher level of building our program. So that's what we said is a program, a bunch of instructions for our processor. However, we understood assembly is also not very high level, so we wanted a programming language. That was the birth of the programming language, where we got low level, high level programming languages. In high level programming languages, we code in English language using the rules defined by the programming language developer, programming language creator. Syntax and semantics is what we use. And once we build a program in high level English, we'll have it be converted to the machine code by using the compiler software, which once we create as machine code, we can ask the machine, the processor, to execute it. And we observed, unlike a human being, a machine is fast, reliable in the sense it will do the same operation any number of times without getting bored, without errors, which is exactly what will help us in automating mundane tasks. Having said that, we observed once programming languages were created and they evolved, we wanted a programming language using which we can communicate with the OS, we can communicate with the hardware. The most powerful language which was released was C. C. We observed the problem with C was found only after a decade of application development, where people saw that the moment the application code base became more than 1 million lines of code, problems started happening. What problems? We said any program we build has to honor 3 tenets of software. Remind me the 3 tenets, please. Step number 1, tenet number 1, it should meet the requirements. Tenet number 2, it should be maintainable. It should be easy to enhance. In maintainability and enhanceability is where the problems of C was found. Why? Because C is a procedural application development oriented programming language, where you build a set of functions which will sequentially execute, interacting with what data? Global data. And if any of the function would manipulate the global data wrongly, what will happen to all the other functions which are dependent on the global data? They will go bad, go wrong, and they will become erroneous, so to say. Which is why we observed maintainability and enhanceability became a big problem. And also, C accentuates the problem by giving the complete power in the hands of the developer. It's like you buy a car, Lamborghini Aventador. Lamborghini cars, you know, Ferrari car, you know. Let's say you buy the car, okay? You win the lottery or you buy the car or whatever. 1000 bhp car. 1000 bhp. Your Maruti car has 45 bhp. Alright? That means your Ferrari car, you go near accelerator, it will go. You don't even need to touch it. Correct now? Very, very powerful. Now tell me, is it very easy to drive this car in our Indian roads in Majestic? Huh? Very easy? No way. You touch that accelerator, it will probably in front of you is one lorry, it will go inside that lorry and sit. Yes or no? It's very difficult. Yeah? So much power is there. Or but think about a battle tank. You have a battle tank, T-72 Russian battle tank, and you are going to school in it, college in it. It's very difficult to maneuver this. Why? Because you have so much power. Consider our Tata Nano, for example. Yenu power illa. Right? Very less power. You stamp the accelerator also, good go, it'll go. Right? So clearly, with less power, it makes it easy for us to manage it, maintain it, enhance it. One of the problems of C is it gives complete power in the hands of the developer. So we observed coincidentally at this point in time, what also happened was that there was an explosion of internet, and internet is nothing but collection of different computing devices with different hardwares and softwares. At the same time, there was an explosion of micro devices where all different physical hardware devices were enabled with microprocessors. Obviously, wherever there is a processor, we want to build a program. So clearly, sitting on a Windows machine, I want to build a program, but that should have the ability to run across all the devices. This came as a new requirement, which was not there earlier. At that point in time, what got released to the world is Java. To introduce Java to the world, James Gosling, the founder member of this programming language in Sun Microsystems, released a white paper. And the white paper is nothing but a document where he captured all the Java's benefits and advantages. And he mentioned Java is simple, blah, 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 blah. And he released this to who? C++ developers who are already existing. And these C++ developers, when they read this and understood these benefits, they were like amazed. They were like, yes, I also want this. That's when they shifted over. Now, to understand these merits at a high level, let's quickly get into this. At least one topic or two topics I want us to understand today. So Java is said to be simple. We will talk about how Java is object-oriented in the third class in a fair amount of detail, and I will show you object-oriented programming helps you to build a program not only which meets the requirements, but it is easy to maintain and enhance as well. How? We will discuss. But now let's understand this. So far the recap. Java is said to be simple. Tell me, you already said, when is it you say something is simple? Is only after you have used it, correct? The problem was James Gosling needed to convince C++ people without using Java, you should feel that it is easy to use. Correct, no? How do you do that? Like for example, if I were to ask you, have you seen this in your life? I mean, you should say yes or no, man. No. Good. That's why I'm showing you. You have never seen this in your life. Look at this closely. Okay. Now, tell me, easy to use? Simple? When do you say this is simple? Very good.
When I know something about it.
Very good. When you know something about it, when you use it, when it is easy to use. That's what I'm asking you. When you use it, you can know it, whether it is easy or not. But tell me now, you tell me, is it simple to use or not?
After using, we'll get.
After using, but before using, you tell me. Looking at this, tell me, easy to use, simple?
No.
No? Hey,
Don't know.
don't know. Good answer. Good answer. Would is it simple to use or not? First question. Sorry, yenadu? What is this? Yes or no? If I tell you this is a torch, now tell me, will you know how to use it and can you say whether it is simple or not? Then immediately your mind, oh, illinda bartha light. Oh, buttons. Click the button. Barthana illa. If I tell you this is not a torch, I simply told you this is a digital pen. Then you can understand that you are going to write with it. Bottom line, when can you find out that something is simple is, even before you use it is, when it is familiar to something you already know. Are you with me? Because you know of a pen, you can relate to this and say whether it is simple to use or not. And when I now tell you the functionalities of this, that you can write any color you want, you can write, my black pen writes only black, any color, beautiful. Even without using, you can understand the merits, is it not? But once you relate it with something you already know, that's why. When Java was created, what did the founding members, founding team do is to make Java simple. They did a couple of things. One, the syntax and semantics, syntax of the language was kept the same as C++. You have your same flower braces, semicolon, etc. that you see in C++. Syntax is very similar to syntax similar to C, C++, which automatically means what? Any C, C++ developer, when he looks at a Java program, will he be able to understand at a high level what it is doing or not? The moment you relate to it, what is it, you automatically your mind will tell you that it is simple. But more importantly, for something to be simple, what should be removed from it?
Pointer part.
Complex things should be removed from it. Correct, no? And what is it you already said are complex in C, C++ to understand are? Pointer arithmetic, memory management. So, pointer arithmetic, memory management need not be done by managed by developer. That means if you don't need to bother about pointers, if you don't need to bother about memory, clearly the complexity of your program, is it reduced or not? If your complexity is reduced, automatically what is improved? Simplicity. Free with me? So that's why we say Java is said to be more simpler, because all the complex features of C and C++ have been removed. Because they have been removed, clearly as a developer now, we can focus only on the simpler aspects. That is why it is easier to code in Java. That is why it is said to be simpler. We'll come back to this. There is an important reason. We'll come back to that. Now, let's start the discussion at least. The most important benefit of Java, which captured the essence of the developers of the yesteryear, is that Java is platform independent. It's a 1 hour discussion. It is the most important discussion. It is something that you need to know in depth, not superficially. So let's try to understand this. Let's begin the discussion today. Java is said to be platform independent. When can you understand that Java is platform independent or not is when you know, first of all, what is a platform. And you need to know what is platform dependency. Then you can know what is platform independency. Right from scratch, no assumptions. So I know, you know. Tell me, what is a platform? Operating system? OS? What is a platform? Hello? I want something. Is operating system OS a platform? Yes or no? Yes? Or is it hardware? How do you decide what is this platform? This is the problem. In software, I tell you, the words that we use are English words which I and you know the meaning of, but each one of us can come up with a different interpretation. Some of you think platform, sir. That's also a platform. I mean, of course, this is silly, but what I'm saying is, that's a platform, OS is a platform. So what is a platform? Well, let's come up with simple examples, simple definitions. So what is a platform from a no man's point of view, layman's point of view, sorry. If you see, my understanding of definitions is this. If you can explain something to a grandmother, old lady, who doesn't know anything about computer science, and still she understands, or he understands, grandfather, then you have the correct definition. If you have a definition which even a 24-year-old computer science expert doesn't understand, that is not a good definition. A definition is good if it is simple. A definition is bad if it is complex. Complex definitions you need to get away from. Alright? Like for example, the combination of common objects through brokerage with an architecture which provides you intercommunication with interprocess and interfunction and interdisciplinary platform interaction is what is called CORBA. This is a definition I'm telling you. It's a definition, CORBA. Have you heard of that? Common object request broker architecture. Alright? If I give you the definition, it is that definition. Did you understand? I remember distinctly in my first job, my first day into my project, my lead came and told me, hey Vikram, just do one thing, okay? Just hook up the EJB calls, ensure that the session beans talk to entity beans, and ensure that the CORBA calls are deviated. Make sure you do correct checked exception handling, and when you do this, please do JUnit testing. First day into job, man. I looked at him and said, Actually, I said, okay. And then I asked my friend, Yananda, what did he say? Which language is he talking about? Remember, unfortunately in computer science we have made things more complex by using all these jargons. Make things simple, simple, simple. The more simpler something is, the more clarity you have of the topic. So what is a platform? From my simple definition point of view, just all of you know about it for sure, but just to come up with a consensus. A platform is anything for which you can develop and run a program. That's it. What is a platform? Is anything for which you can develop a program. That's a platform. Let's test our understanding. Tell me, iPhone 7, platform or not? Can you develop a program for iPhone 7 or not? Yes, platform. Android, Nexus 6, platform or not? Yes. TV, platform or not? TV pa. You can write a program and put in your TV.
No.
TV, platform or not?
No.
Yes or no?
No.
It depends. Depends. What does it depend on? Whether your TV has a processor, whether you can run programs on it. If you have bought a TV where you can't run applications on it, not a platform. But aren't there other TVs? Come on, you would have seen Ranbir Kapoor, Katrina Kaif coming out from TV and telling you buy this TV. Advertisement, have you not seen or not? What TVs are they called as? Smart TVs. Correct, no? You can download applications from the internet, run it on the program, run it on your TV. That means you are building a program for the TV. That means it is also such a smart TV is a platform. Are you with me? So anything for which you can develop a program is what is a platform. Tell me from a machine point of view, a computer machine point of view, what features of the machine do you build the program for? Going back to our architecture simple diagram, you have your hardware, you have your OS, you have your program. So this program is built for features of dash. OS or hardware? OS or hardware? Rajanaga. Both. Do you want to use the hardware also in your program or not? Do you also use some system calls of your OS to do memory management, process management, etc. also or not? That means you want to use the features of both. That means for what do you build a program in your machine are both features of OS and hardware. That is why both put together is a platform. Not one. Not only the OS, not only the hardware, it is always a combination. Are you with me? Now tell me, when do you say my program is platform dependent? When our program works with only one OS or our program works with only one hardware. If there is a dependency on the OS or the hardware or both, then we say our program is platform dependent. When do we say our program is platform independent? When our program will work on any OS, any hardware. That is the promise of Java. Java programs are platform independent. You got to be careful. The general vocabulary that is used is Java is platform independent. That's wrong. Java is not platform independent. Java programs are platform independent. Alright, what does that mean? Let's try to understand. Now, let me come back to all of this in the next session. Between today and tomorrow, we'll finish all these topics and then get into object-oriented world. We'll get there. You got to give me some time. For the first 2-3 sessions, we will be a little slow. We'll just orient ourselves so that we all of us understand all these things commonly. Then we will start with the Java language specifically. Okay. Having said that, if you take any C program, C or whatever other programming language like C, what will you do first? You'll build program, right? Set of instructions. In what language? Tamil. It's English language. English language. And clearly, what is it you are going to do? You cannot give the English language instructions. And of course, you will follow the syntax of the language, right? You cannot have that be run directly by the system. You already said so. What is it we are going to pass it through is a software called compiler. What does the compiler spit out? Dash code? Machine code is also called dash code. Not bytecode. Machine code is also called dash code. Object code. It is also called dash code. I told you earlier. I'm always going to test you, by the way. Garbage code. Target code. Binary code. Binary code, object code, machine code. All three mean the same. Typically, you might get some executable code like x.exe. Yes or no? Now, what could I directly do with this? I can directly ask this to be executed by the underlying machine. Yes or no? I code in high-level English, convert that into machine code by using the compiler. Once I have machine code, is that machine code understandable by the underlying processor of the machine or not? Can I have it be executed or not? That's the whole point of machine code. It is in the set of instructions in the processor specific instruction set, which means we can ask the processor to execute it. Question for you. Is this x.exe machine code platform dependent or independent? You already know what is dependency and what is independency. Using that as a litmus test, tell me. Dependent or independent? Dependent. Independent. Independent. Don't go by my face. Clearly. Look at it. This machine code has instructions in what instruction set? The underlying machine specific, processor specific instruction set. So will it work on another processor? That means it is definitely dependent on hardware. If it is dependent on hardware, is it platform dependent or not? 100% platform dependent. It means, can I take this x.exe into another machine, different processor, and have it be executed? No way. This is the problem with your non-Java programming language programs. That is, once you build a program and compile it, it will work with only one machine set of instructions, one type of hardware, not others. So that means, look at this for example now. You have all kinds of mobile devices now. All different mobile devices have different hardwares, different processors, etc. If I want to build a game, I want my game to work on which of the mobile devices? All mobile devices here. Anybody who has a mobile device, my game should work on it, is it not? But if I use C to build it now, will it work on all the devices? No way. Because once I compile it to one instruction set of one machine, it will work only on that device and not others. Platform dependent. Now, compare it with Java. In Java, before I go to Java, what is it we need to install to build C programs are? Is your compiler, correct? And by the way, can you tell me at x.c level, machine code level, it is dependent on the machine, platform dependent, you told me. What about here? Dependent or independent?
Independent.
Why do you say some of you dependent? I am coding in English, right? Is that dependent on the platform? My favorite answer. It neither this ka nor that ka.
It depends.
Depends. It depends. Can you tell me what if I use in my x.c? In my English code, still will my program be dependent on the platform? You know the answer. Yes? Dash calls. System calls. You only told no? System calls. If in my x.c I make system calls, OS calls, if I call OS functions, then tell me, my x.c program will work on which OS? I am making OS calls, Windows OS function calls if I make. My program will work on which OS? Only Windows, yeah. If I make Mac OS calls, it will work on which OS? Mac. Linux OS calls, Linux. Even in my English code, if I make OS calls, will my English code also become dependent on OS, dependent on platform or not? Not only machine code compiled output, even my English code can be dependent on platform. Now, let's compare it with Java, okay? In Java world, if you want to build the program, Java program and test it, we consider ourselves those who want us to build code and test it as developers. We need to install a software. In your C world, you install compiler, right? In your Java world, we install a software called JDK, Java Development Toolkit. It's important to know what do we get when you install JDK. I'll repeat again. I'll keep asking you questions. Answer, please. Who should install JDK? Developer, the one who wants to develop the Java program. This JDK, don't worry about what, I'll just give you the names, contains some components, some parts. How many? Whenever I ask you how many in Java, there are the magic number. 4. 4 is the magic number in Java. When you don't know how many, 4. Clue I'm giving you. Like for example, how many ways of creating an object in Java are there? There are object andrene gottilla. How to create object kelta idira. But how many? 4. See, you know. How many ways of using an interface and creating polymorphic code is there in Java? 4. Very good. How many parts of your collection framework are there? 4. Ultimate man you are. Bottom line. 4 is the magic number in Java. You will see this very commonly. How many parts this JDK contains are? 4 parts. The 4 parts are, there is a software called Java Virtual Machine JVM. There is a software called Java Compiler. There is a software which we simply call as Runtime Library. Don't worry about what they are yet. Runtime Library. And there are many programs called development tools. So your JDK is a combination of 4 parts. You have to know the 4 parts. JVM, Java Virtual Machine Software, Compiler Software, Runtime Library Software, Development Tools, Programs. By heart this for now, these 4 things, alright? Now, so we have to install JDK as a developer, you see. To install it, you need to know the version. So what is the current version of JDK, which is available for you to download? 8.x, 1.8.x, etc. So we'll download it, we'll install it. The moment you install, you get these 4 things. Now, after this, what am I going to do? I'm going to build my program, right? Instead of x.c, .c is a file extension. Instead of that, I'll rename it, or I'll name it x.java. But how will I code? Again, using what language? English. And remember, what syntax am I going to use? A syntax which is similar to C, C++. We already saw that the syntax is very similar to C, C++. So we'll build this. But importantly, what will be not there? No OS calls. What is this OS call? Some of you have a doubt in it. OS provides some functions. You can call those functions in your program. Don't worry about more about this. This much is enough to know. OS functions, OS provides a set of functions for its features. You can call those functions and make the OS do something for you. In Java, you will never make those OS function calls. So now tell me, x.java, we have coded. The syntax is very similar to your C, C++. Is it platform dependent or platform independent? Alright, independent, yeah. Because this English doesn't depend on hardware. It also doesn't depend on any OS. Platform independent. However, can we run this program directly? No. What is it you're going to pass it through? Java compiler. Very similar to C. You have a C compiler, you have a Java compiler. However, the output is different. The output of compiling a Java program is not machine code. Instead, as many of us know, it is bytecode. Bytecode means the files format, file system is x.class. Java will spit out a .class. Don't worry more about it right now. X.class. Tomorrow we'll discuss all of it in more detail and you can ask me all the queries and questions you may have. Having said that, x.class is spit out. Are you with me so far? Now, this x.class, what it contains is not as important as to understand what it doesn't contain. What this bytecode x.class doesn't contain is first and foremost, it doesn't contain machine code. It also does not contain any OS function calls. Are you with me? It does not have OS communication. It doesn't have anything specific to the machine instruction set, which means you can safely say that the bytecode is platform independent. No dependency on hardware, no dependency on OS. Are you with me so far? Very important. Compiled output in C was machine code, dependent on machine, platform dependent, whereas the compiled output of a Java program is bytecode, machine independent, OS independent, platform independent. Are you with me so far? But, now tell me, can I ask this machine to execute this bytecode or not? Can I ask the machine to execute this or not? No. No, how can it? Because machine understands what code? Machine code. Machine doesn't understand byte code. Are you with me? So that means you can't execute your compiled Java program. Is that helpful? Beautiful program. No, you cannot run only. Obviously there should be a mechanism to run, no. Obviously what we should want? We want to convert this byte code to machine code. Then only you can execute it, right? Machine code is called machine code because only the machine understands it. Which is the reason why what we are going to do now in Java specifically is pass this through the software which we have downloaded and installed called JVM. Importantly, like for example, as a joke, our Prime Minister keeps visiting different countries. Imagine he goes to, I don't know, China, for example. Not an exact example, perfect example, but just as a joke. In China, for the longest period of time, Chinese people only knew Chinese, no other language. I have been to China and the only language that I spoke, or the only English that the Chinese understood was okay. That's it. They understood only okay. That means somebody would write in Chinese for me an address for hailing a cab. I would go to a taxi and I would show him, okay? He would look at it and say, okay. And he would start driving. I would ask in between, okay? He would say, look at it, okay. And as soon as the place comes, okay. He would look at me, okay. I would say, okay. All communication would happen with just one okay word and intonations, you see. Because they are not educated, very educated. They were not exposed to English language. Of course, now things have changed. But imagine, if our Prime Minister goes to China and he is interacting with some Chinese premier and he doesn't understand English, let's say, clearly this fellow, our Prime Minister, is more comfortable in Hindi and that fellow is more comfortable in Chinese. Now he says, Kaise ho tum? And that fellow is like, what is he saying, man? Clearly, for him to understand and communicate, what is it that is used as an in-betweener? What do we call them as? Interpreters. You see? Because this Hindi should be now interpreted to Chinese. That Chinese should be interpreted back to Hindi or English. So the person who converts one form to another is what we call as interpreter. Remember, interpreter, what he or she should not do? Change and add his own thing. Correct, no? This fellow is scolding you right now. If you tell to some premier, clearly it will be upset. Jokes aside, JVM has a interpreter. I'll repeat again. What are the steps that we are going to follow to build a Java program? Step 1, we are going to install a software called JDK, latest version. We get 4 parts: JVM, Java compiler, runtime library, and development tools. We don't know what they are. We have just added them for now. Step 2, we are going to build our Java program using a C++ like syntax. Step 3, using the Java compiler, we will compile high-level English code to a lower-level formatted code called bytecode. Importantly, in our Java code, English code, there are no OS communication calls, platform independent. Importantly, the compiled output also doesn't contain OS communication calls, and also surprisingly no machine code, no dependency on hardware, no dependency on OS. That means our bytecode is platform independent. So far, are you with me? But we observed this bytecode, which is a dot class extension, cannot be runnable directly by the machine because the machine doesn't understand bytecode. So we need somebody who can convert the bytecode to machine understandable machine code. And who is that entity in your Java world who is going to do it? JVM. JVM has a interpreter. Computer science guys, tell me the difference between a compiler and an interpreter. Very important question. Both of them. Remember, when we're going to do the versus game, I'll rub this off and do it, or maybe let's do it right away. We're going to play the versus game. Versus game means compiler versus interpreter. Whenever we talk about any versus, first of all, what is it you can compare? You can only compare the things that are not different, wrong, similar. You can only compare things that are similar. Tell me the difference between sky and pen. Can you compare sky and pen? Sky and pen. How do you compare? You have to have similarity. That's why any versus question which we are going to pose to ourselves, the first thing we are going to do is we are going to understand what are the similarities. Both compiler and interpreters are, usually both of them are, they are first softwares. Both of them software, no assumptions, correct? And second, as you rightly said, both of them convert. What to what? High level code to low level code. Be generic, right? Don't say machine code, correct no? So both of them are softwares, both convert higher level form to lower level form. Now tell me specific details and differences. What's the difference? Compiler converts entire thing at one shot, whereas interpreter does line by line conversion. Very good. But that's not the only difference. The major difference between the two are, what's the major difference? Computer science guys, come on, you know this. Hello? Compiler, little louder man. No, compiler is not used for debugging, no. But I understand what you're saying. Compiler checks some rules. Even interpreter checks those rules as well. Compiler checks your code. Interpreter checks your code too. What's the difference? Major difference, come on.
It converts into machine code, compiler doesn't convert into machine code.
Compiler checks does all the checks and gives you all the errors at one shot. Interpreter does line by line checking, so it gives you only those errors there. I got that. You are right. Jainagar, you said that compiler converts to machine code. Look at Java compiler. What does Java compiler convert it to? Is bytecode machine code? No. That means that understanding is wrong. Don't think all compilers compile to machine code. They don't. Java compiler compiles to bytecode, and that is still called compiler only. Now, the important difference is, as you said, compiler converts en masse, interpreter converts line by line. Both of them do checks. Okay. Most important difference is your interpreter also executes code. Your compiler never executes. This is the major difference, guys. Your interpreter not only interprets and converts higher level form to lower level form. Remember, both of them are software that convert a higher level form to a lower level form. Both of them do checks. Compiler does en masse check, interpreter does line by line check, but most important difference is an interpreter executes code. No compiler executes code. Are you with me? Look at this JVM. What does the JVM which has an interpreter do? Converts dash to dash. Tell me. Higher level bytecode to the lower level machine code, and it executes it. So did we get our program to run or not? Did we get our program to run or not? Absolutely yes, is it not? So what are the steps in Java to build our program and code it, compile it and test it? First, install JDK as a one-time action. Second, code it. Third, compile it to bytecode. Invoke the JVM program that you have got in JDK. Feed that. What input? Bytecode. What will the JVM do, which has an interpreter? Convert higher level bytecode line by line to the lower machine specific machine code, and it executes. So did our program get executed or not? Yes. But the entire reason for discussing this is to understand platform independency. Let's verify. Did we get platform independency or not? Our English code was platform independent. Our compiled code was platform independent. But that's not our aim. Our aim is what? Quora. We want to compile our program only once. But where is it I should be able to run? Anywhere. Any OS, any hardware. Are you with me? Compile our program once, run it anywhere. That is our aim. How have we reached that? Let us see in a couple of minutes, and in the next session we'll dig deeper. Now, I have compiled it once to bytecode. On the same machine, can I run it any number of times or not? Remember, if I want to run the same bytecode on the same machine any number of times, what should I execute? JVM. JVM is a software, I told you, right? I have to execute JVM. If I want to execute my Java program 10 times on my machine, 10 times I need to invoke JVM, 10 times the JVM will convert bytecode to machine code, 10 times it will execute. So far so good. But I have now installed JDK on my Windows system. I'll give it to my customer, and my customer is running a Linux box. If my program runs there, then my program is platform independent. Is it not? Please note. This is what a developer should do. What should a customer who wants to run a program should do in his machine? Is install a software called JRE. JRE is an acronym for Java Runtime Environment, and this also contains a couple of parts. What does it contain? Are actually only two parts: the JVM plus this so-called runtime library. JRE, JDK. You gotta acquaint yourself with these terminologies, they are very important. So tell me now, which is bigger, JDK or JRE? JDK. What can you say the relationship between JDK and JRE is? JDK dash JRE. JDK has JRE. Correct, no? Look at this. JRE is nothing but JVM plus runtime library. Both are softwares. You don't need to know more about this yet. Tomorrow you ask me all questions. There is JVM and runtime library. JDK also has JVM and runtime library or not? So JDK is nothing but dash plus dash. JRE plus Java compiler plus development tools. Agreed? Now, who has to install JRE is customer. So when he installs JRE, before that, tell me this. What is the JVM doing? We said converting high level bytecode to lower level machine code. Which means, should the JVM understand the machine code syntax or not? Should it understand the underlying processor's instruction set or not? Only then it will be able to convert. No. If JVM understands the lower level machine specific machine code syntax, then the JVM is platform dependent, because it knows only one type of machine code syntax. Are you with me? Everybody clear? So the customer will install JRE, but he will install JRE for Linux. When he will get a JVM built for Linux. Are you with me so far? Now, how is he going to run the program? What will we give him, by the way? Are we going to give him source code, or are we going to give him compiled code? Compiled code. We will give him x.class. So he takes x.class, he wants to run it. He will give this as an input to which program? To execute Java programs? JVM. Correct, no? And this JVM, what will it do? What does it have? Interpreter. Line by line it interprets and executes. But it interprets what? The generic bytecode. Remember, did the bytecode contain any machine or OS dependency? No. It converts the generic bytecode to the lower machine specific machine. Which machine's code? Linux machine code. Are you with me? And it executes it. So did our once compiled program, did it get run and executed on a Linux box or not? Yes. What is it that the customer had to do for this is only install JRE for Linux. What if my customer is there in a Mac box? What if my customer wants to run my program in a HPUX box? What should he do? Install JRE for HPUX, install JRE for your Macintosh, etc. As long as JRE is installed, the customer will get a JVM built for his machine. What does the JVM understand? Byte code on the one hand, machine code of that machine on the other hand. So the JVM is very much platform dependent, not independent, dependent, because it knows only one machine code. Are you with me? But now how many JVMs are there? There are not one JVM. There is one JVM per platform. Are you understanding this, guys? This is very important. Tomorrow we'll go through this more in detail after the recap. Having said that, just one thing to share with you. Might I want my Java program to open a file, read a file? Yes or no? Who does file system management in any machine? OS. Who implements file system is your OS. That means what calls you have to do to the OS to communicate, to open a file, read a file, etc. System calls. Are we going to do any system calls in our Java programs? No. Instead, what will we communicate with? What software? Runtime library. Runtime library will in turn communicate with OS. I have installed JDK 8.x for Windows. That means what will I get? JVM which understands Windows machine specific machine code. A runtime library which knows how to communicate with Windows OS. Are you with me? Now, don't worry about it too much at this high level. Instead of communicating with the OS, we will instead in our program communicate with runtime library. Library will communicate with tree. And now, when this program is run, which library is executed? Library for Windows OS. That means will Windows files be opened, closed, read or not? Same program gone to Linux box. What does the customer install on his Linux machine? JRE. What does he get? Not only JVM but this runtime library knows how to communicate with what? Which OS? Linux OS. Our runtime library knew how to communicate with Windows OS. But here he gets the runtime library which knows how to communicate with Linux OS. Now tell me, when the JVM interprets higher level byte code to the Linux machine specific machine code and executes, which runtime library will get executed? That means will files be opened and closed and read in Linux box also or not? That means were we able to do what the OS only knows to do, but still have our program be OS independent, machine independent or not? Welcome to the magical world of platform independence by Java. Please understand, what is platform independent in Java? Compiled Java programs byte code is platform independent. What is not platform independent? What is platform dependent? JVM is dependent. Not only JVM, what is also dependent? Runtime library is dependent. That means what is dependent? JRE is platform dependent. But do we build JRE? We don't build JRE. JRE has already been built. As long as a customer installs the JRE for his platform, will my compiled Java program bytecode run on his machine also or not? That's the beauty of Java programs. Java compiled programs are platform independent. Java is not platform independent. JDK, which contains JRE and JRE, both are platform dependent. Because JDK and JRE are dependent, our compiled programs are platform independent. Are you understanding this? This is super important. The first interview question that will be asked in any company is explain why Java programs are platform independent. Tomorrow, I'm going to walk you through this. I'll allow you to ask me all the questions that you may have, dig deeper, understand exactly and come up with an answer. And I will tell you right now, if this is the question that is asked and you answer it in the way we discuss, the interviewer's mind will be blown. Next question he will ask you is, Yavak Bad Serkoltya. That's it. The aim is to not to know many things in width. The aim is to know one thing, but in complete depth. We are still scratching the surface. But are you all with me so far? Alright. I would like to discuss this afresh tomorrow and take you through all the remaining buzzwords and wrap up the discussion of the advantages of Java as well. Are you all with me? Remember guys, The only thing that matters is depth. I'll end this session with a small story so that you understand the gravity of the situation. There was a 200 years ago in India, when the number of people were very less, you could really go to any village or whatever and start farming. So one local man goes to a village. Outside the village, he sets up a tent, sets up his house, and he wants to farm. There was no buying of land and all that. Outside of villages, whatever land you can till is your land. So he wanted to do farming. But what is important for farming? What do you need? Water. First he has to dig a well. So he started digging a well. The moment he started digging a well, 3 days has happened. He has gone down 5 feet. It's all manual labor. 5 feet of dirt he has dug up. One local village man comes and he says, "Hey, what are you doing?" As if what he is doing is some entertainment. Everybody knows he is digging a well. He says, "Digging a well, Swami?" And the local man says, "Hayyo Muttal, you are digging a well in the wrong place. Don't you know where you should dig a well? I am the local water body expert. I will tell you where you should dig the well. Come here." He'll take him to 30 feet aside. He'll do all kinds of dance. And he'll say, Ilmad, dig the well here. This man says, "Thank you, Buddhi. Thank you so much, because I was digging in a place and you're telling me it was the wrong place. This is where I should dig. Thank you so much. You have impacted my life." The local man goes away. This man starts digging. 5 days he digs. He gets one boulder. And through that boulder he's digging. 5 days, no water. Another man comes. And he says, "Arey wo Muttal, don't tell me that one person came and told you and you listened to him. And you have started digging here. He told he is water expert." No. He is making a fool of you. "I am water expert. Ba. Don't dig there. Dig there." Another 3-4 days happen. No water. Like this, 5 people come and tell him, in 5 different places he has dug the wall. Everywhere 3 feet, 4 feet, 5 feet. He has spent already some 5 into 3, 15, 20 days. No water anywhere, no farming. He is lost. I don't know if you know, 200 years ago, anywhere in India, 10 feet if you dig, you would get water. Anywhere. Doesn't even matter where. What is the mistake he did? He did not go to depth. Remember, the only important way of learning is learning by experience, but learning in depth. The superficial things don't matter. I and you know Java is platform independent. Doesn't help. You need to know exactly why and how Java is platform independent. Full in depth. Only when you know in depth will it matter to you. Only when you know in depth will it matter to an interviewer. This is the only way you can differentiate yourself from another person. Do not focus on high level understanding. Focus on in-depth understanding. That's how we are going to learn in every single session. I welcome you to attend the next session tomorrow, where I'll take you through this and wrap up the disadvantages of Java. We'll discuss also disadvantages and other things that have happened, and we will go deeper into it. Thank you very much for your time and patience. Now,